Hello everyone, I'm Mark. Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video showing rebuilding a QuadraJet 4-barrel carburetor on my 71 Corvette. I want to show you a few things on it first here. Whenever you're working on a QuadraJet, of course it says QuadraJet right here. I hope this is showing up good. Whenever you go order the rebuild kit for it, there's a number right here. And again, I don't know how well that's showing up, but there's a number right stamped in the body right here. You want to give them that number so they give you the right rebuild kit. I guess there are several different rebuild kits for different QuadraJets, so you want to make sure you're getting the right one. Also, on this one I noticed it's showing it's been rebuilt back in 2017 by a company called Urimco or something. Anyway. And if you can look at it, it looks really clean. It's definitely been rebuilt. If you get one of these that's been on the car for a long time, you'll know what I'm talking about. But so first thing I gotta do is I gotta come in and remove all my linkages, my vacuum line here that for the goes to the brake booster, and then my fuel line on the front and a couple other vacuum lines. Take 4 bolts out and be able to lift it right off of the manifold. So let me show you a couple other things over here. Whenever you're working with lines like this, or like the vacuum line, you always want to be sure and use a flare nut wrench. You can see how it's just barely open, so it'll go over the pipe, but then you got a lot of support all the way around that flange nut as much as you can get. If you just try using just a regular wrench on there, if they're tight, you run the risk of crushing them, damaging them, making them unusable, and then you got to replace them. So you want to be really careful with that. If you don't have a flare wrench, if you go to use a regular wrench, be very, very careful, and don't put too much pressure on them or you will damage them. So this is the rebuild kit. I got it at Napa. This is the rebuild kit that I got for my carburetor. There's the part number. Hope that's focusing in. Based on that number off my carburetor body that I gave them. So let me get the camera repositioned and we'll get started on this. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is take my my fuel line off and my vacuum line off, and get that on there. So now I'm going to lift the carburetor up along with the choke and extra wires and everything. Try to keep from spilling gas anywhere out of here. Okay, so we got the carburetor off the car. It's still going to have fuel in the bowls, so you want to take and get rid of that. As much of it out of there as you can. And I don't think my the accelerator pump here, when you push down the gas, it gives an extra little squirt, so you don't have that hesitation when you take off. I don't think mine's working. I think the little plunger in there is bad. So we want to go ahead and start opening this thing up. And you want to remember what holes things are in so you get the adjustment back to the same. So what I like to do before I tear anything off of it, I already took the choke off, but that's not, I like to take a couple pictures. Just to be safe. Just in case I pull something off and I think, God, I can't get that back on, why? And then I realize I'm in the wrong hole. Okay. Even holes that are plugged up, if you take these little caps off, because Some carburetors, this one's not too bad. I know the last one I did had a couple extra holes in the front here for vacuum, and seemed like it had one back here for vacuum or something too. There was something weird about it. So anyway, I want to pop this clip. Have something to put your parts in. This is a magnetic pan, so these little tiny clips and stuff, you can pop them out of there, you can put them in there and hopefully not lose them. You can see how tiny some of these things are. Very easy to lose. Okay. Okay, now this should lift off. I have to pry a little bit. A good place to pry without breaking something. Oh, there it goes. That was easy. Okay, now I got this little, get some over there, hold me. I'm still hooked in there. I'm hooked into something. Yeah, the rubber, there should be a rubber plunger right there snapped down onto there. It's completely off of there. It's no wonder my accelerator pump didn't work. I think it's down in there. Okay, I think there's something else I got to disconnect from the linkage. I can't, oh, yeah. It's this lever right here. I always forget about it. And you got to be careful. Luckily, this one's got a little clip on it, but some of them don't have a clip, and you twist it to put it on there, and as you're putting it back together, if you're not careful, it'll fall out, and you get the carburetor all put back together and realize it fell out, and you got to take everything back apart again. So always be watching what you're doing there, and make sure that doesn't happen. This is just like the clip I took off of the accelerator pump lever. Okay, there you go. Okay, you can see these metering rods here. You want to be very careful you don't bend those. These little tubes, these fuel tubes and stuff, you don't want to bend those. That's kind of jacked up there for being a rebuilt carburetor. But so just set that off to the side for now. Set it upside down so then you don't mess those up. And those metering rods hook onto this lever here. And if you turn them just right, they'll fall off. And again, when you're putting it all back together, make sure they'll stay connected as you're setting it back down in here, or else it's a real pain. Okay. That gasket out from underneath that. That's your little plunger. Okay. Let me see if I can get that out of there. There is the little plunger that's supposed to be attached to that rod I just took out for the accelerator pump. And boy, this is really, I've never seen one that thin and flimsy before. It's no wonder it came off, but that should have snapped down over these little ears like that. And then that's what, of course, works like a pump, you know. It pushes that fuel down and forces it into the primary openings here to give that little boost of fuel. And if you have a car that it's got a little hesitation or something, that's probably what's wrong with it. That should just pop out of there. Okay, why is that not popping out? I don't want to break it. There it goes. Okay. That's just a filler piece in there. This is your float here. And this you can pull out, and that little dark ring there, that's holding this in. So you should be able to just pull up on it. Normally, just pull up on it, it'll pop right out. That's a bad thing when you get something that's been rebuilt, you don't know. Looks like they staked it in there. Normally it just presses down in there. But I'm assuming because this company rebuilt it, they do that, because sometimes it will pop back out when they're trying to put it back together, but once it's all together it can't go anywhere. I think they did just make it for ease of assembly. Okay, set that off to the side. Now you can lift your float out. Okay, you can see it's definitely a new parts in here. The float feels good. It doesn't feel, it doesn't have any liquid in it, so I think it's still a good float. Okay, and this is your needle valve that goes down and shuts the fuel off. As this bowl fills up with fuel, it pushes the float up and it shoves this needle down and shuts the fuel off so that it doesn't flood. If that's sticking or something, sometimes you can have a flooding issue or no fuel coming in at all. Either one is bad. Okay. That's pretty much it as far as the carburetor. Just drop that out of there. This linkage just fell out of here that hooks on for the choke. The good thing is one end doesn't have a groove, the other one does. I know this is the end that goes to the top like that because I took that clip out of it, so it's got to go down in there. And this one's kind of a pain to get down in there onto the little lever. So again, you want to be really careful because it's real hard to get on there, but once you get on there and move it, it falls right off again. So it comes off easier and it goes on. And believe me, I've had to fight those a lot. So actually overall this carburetor looks pretty clean. A lot of times you have a lot of sediment down in here because that's where basically your fuel sits until it goes through into the carburetor, into the engine. And sediment will lay in there to look kind of rusty, brown, dirty looking stuff. Down on the bottom where your accelerator pumps, usually it'll be kind of dirty. Overall it looks really clean. Okay. Now let's open up this kit and you'll see what comes in the kit. Okay, your parts come in like this, and of course if you tear this at all and you find out it's the wrong kit, they won't take it back. So you want to make sure you look at it real good, make sure it's got everything that you need in it as best as you can tell before you open it, because you're stuck with it once you open it. And then because this fits several different types of carburetors and there's different settings for each carburetor, it gives you a list. You go down, find your carburetor, and it'll tell you what you set your different settings at. Okay, and there's a lot of different settings. A lot of them repeat themselves. A lot of carburetors are the same, but some are a little bit different. So you want to look this over really good and make sure that you're doing the right step for your carburetor, the one you have. Here it shows you the assembly of the carburetor. That's showing a plastic float there. It can either be plastic or metal like this one. This is a brass one. I mean, I've used either one, and I really can't say I have a preference one way or another. As long as they don't leak, that's all I care about. You don't want them to get full of fuel or they won't work properly. And again, it takes you down to different settings, assembly, your choke setting, which I don't have this type of choke. My choke is basically, it's just a coil. It heats up and cools down off the intake manifold heat and opens and closes the choke according to engine temperature. Some of them are vacuum. Some of them use kind of the same thing, but it's mounted on the side of the carburetor, and you can adjust it, your open and closing settings by rotating the internal part of it. And again, it shows you settings on how to do that. Here it is here. It works off a vacuum. So it gives you different what your gap should be on the settings and everything. So there's a lot to making sure you go through and redo your carburetor correctly. So I'm going to get these parts cleaned up and get ready to start reassembling, and we'll go from there. Okay, one thing I want to do now is there is a gasket between the bowl assembly and this lower valve plate. So the kit does come with a new gasket somewhere here. And I want to, I don't know where I put it. Anyway, it does come with a new gasket, so I want to change that. So you need to take these two screws here loose, and I believe it'll come off enough to where you can replace the gasket without disassembling all your linkages. I don't know, to me the gasket, none of the screws are really tight on this carburetor. And granted, once you tighten the 4 bolts down against the intake, it'll tighten things down, but even still, those 4 bolts weren't that tight either. And it almost looks like maybe it was seeping a little bit of fuel around here. You can see it's kind of dirty looking. You know, that's not fresh. That's old buildup there from fuel. So that could have been part of my problem too, is it's leaking, sucking a little bit and not working quite right. So I'm going to, I got a little bit of gasket material stuck here, and I got to get this off, and then I'm going to put a new gasket here and put this part back together, because there's really nothing I can do in here. Everything looks pretty good. All the ports and everything look pretty clean. So let me get that cleaned off, and then we'll get back to the next step. Oh, one other thing. On these instructions, like I said, it lists a lot of different years and different vehicles. I mean, this is Oldsmobile, Buick, all kinds of cars. So what I did, I went down through and I found for 71 Chevrolet 350 automatic transmission, these are the settings for certain things on here. And you can see this print's really tiny, and at my age, my eyesight's going, so I really have to strain to try to read this and go down and find it. So what I do is I'll take and lay it out on just a piece of paper, you know, my different settings, my float level, choke rod, vacuum brake, all the different settings they should be at for heights. So the main one I'm concerned about really is my float level. These other ones shouldn't ever really change, but I'm going to check them anyway just to make sure. But I just want to make sure that float's right. So I don't really need this sheet anymore. I got all the information off it I want. On here, on this second page, with the diagram, it also shows you different settings for chokes and things like that. And there's a couple diagrams I need to use to double check my dimensions I have here. This kit comes with a little measuring tool. I'm going to use this to measure the float depth, and basically my float level is 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and cut this off. It's laid out in 30/2 of an inch, so 8/32 is 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to take and with scissors just cut that off, and then when I lay it down on top of the carburetor, the end of this gauge then should sit down on top of the float when the float's closed. So it'll make it real easy to set my float. Makes it kind of nice to give you a little measuring tool for that. So anyway, let me get this cleaned up and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got the base plate back on. The next thing I want to do is I want to replace the float seat valve. Okay, and it comes with a new brass insert where the valve seat's against it, and then a new valve seat. So I'm going to get in here, break that loose, and when you're taking that out, there's a little gasket on it. You want to make sure you don't drop that down in there. You can see a little gasket there. Make sure you get that off. It comes with a new gasket. So that's the old piece. Even though this still looks really good, I mean, like I said, it's only from 2017, and I don't think this car was ran much. You can't even tell it's been used, and it's nice and clean, looks brand new, but I'm still going to replace it since I've got the parts. No sense in skimping now. Okay, and you want to watch, there's a little clip in here too, you don't want to lose it. It clips it to the float. Excuse me just 1 second, got a phone call. Okay, I'm going to set my float now. I've got the seat valve down in there. You drop the float back in, and you want to hold this down with one finger and push down here. And you don't push real hard. I mean, just push down until it bottoms out. Make sure that this stays seated down in there. If it lifts up, it's going to give you a false reading. So, and I've cut off my thing to 1/4 inch long. And so what you do is lay it up here on the body, and you're supposed to go in 3/16 in from the end of this float in is where you want to get your measurement from. So if you hold it there, that looks really good. I think that's fine. I'm not going to adjust it. It looks like it's just perfect. So like I said, I'd lucked out with this being a rebuilt carburetor already. It's been really clean. I did rinse it off with some carburetor cleaner before I start putting it back together. The pollen is killing me. The pollen's been terrible up here lately. So anyway, my next step is there's this little clip. And it's kind of a pain to get on and keep on while you're doing this. And the old float didn't have it on there. But it's just to help, it'll kind of pull this up and down as, and I don't know if I'm able to show you this, it snaps down over the head of that. Get it on without losing it. I thought I lost it earlier and it is stuck to one of my magnetic screwdrivers. It's so tiny to hold on to. I don't even know if it's showing up in the camera. But anyway, it clips down over the end of this float valve like that, and then it just hooks over the lip right here like that, and then when you set it all in there, it kind of keeps it all together, and that way if the float sticks a little bit, sometimes just the weight of the or if the needle sticks a little bit when the float goes down, that'll help break it loose. So you want to be sure and put that on there. Okay, let's make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself here. Make sure, I should have got a new seal for that, but I don't see it in the kit here. Normally the kit will come with a new plastic piece here, and if your kit does, you want to be sure and replace that in there so that it grips it really good, but this kit did not come with it. This kit's actually pretty bare bones. I mean, the last few kits I've bought, I'll have a ton of parts left over because it kind of fits a lot of different carburetors. In the last one I did, there was a seat down in here, and I made a mistake of taking it out before I measured the depth from here down to it, because I thought it just bottomed out in there. And come to find out that height setting in there was really critical, and I had a heck of a time getting it set back to where it needed to be. I had to keep taking it apart and adjusting and playing around with it. So this goes back in there, and there's a little spring. This little spring has to go in first. Well, it goes against this little shaft here. So drop it down in there. And then when you're putting this back in, you got to make sure these little needles, there's a couple little seats down here in the bottom, and you got to make sure you get those in there. And that holds those in place. And then put this back in place. There. Now on this, for the accelerator pump plunger, this is the new plunger, and you can see it's got a lot bigger retainers on it, so this piece won't come off as easy. Now this thing, it doesn't come with everything, so you have to reuse some of these parts. You just basically push down on that and slide it off. Get the spring out of the way. Just pull this down, drop it down, and slide it off. And then they'll use the spring over again and that retaining clip back on the new one. Just like that. Okay, and that's back together. Okay, this spring goes down on this end, down into the bowl. So make sure you put that back in there. And that should do that. I'm going to leave that out for now until I get the gasket back on. Sometimes the gasket, I've had them where you've had to put it in there before you put the gasket in. It's a real pain because then it's wanting to pop back out, and the only thing holding it's this gasket. And then here, because these needles are here, this is designed to cut out to go around that, so you don't have to try to fight getting those needles down through that gasket. Just be careful there you don't bend the needles or anything, or bend anything out of place. And then here's one of those things you got to watch too. Get that up through there. And there's a couple pins down on this end. The gasket goes on. Okay. Now comes the fun part, because now you have to get these needles down in these holes and lined up. Get this linkage up through here and get the accelerator pump in there without popping out while you're trying to do this all at once with only two hands. And trust me, it's a pain. Okay, so I've got the carburetor all back together. It's ready to go back on the car. Okay, I've got the carburetor mounted back on there. I don't think I have any leaks. So anyway, let's fire it up and see what happens. Idling a little high. It's supposed to be idling about 1800 RPM with the choke on. It's slowly coming down. That's still way too high. I'm going to have to back it off a little bit. I don't like that idling that fast. It should start out about 1800 RPM and then come down, and as the choke slowly opens up and then you kick it down, it should go down to about 700 or 800 RPM. And then you put it in gear. I think it's supposed to be around 600 or 700 RPM when you have it in drive. So I'll let it warm up here a little bit. I'm going to go out and see if I can adjust that choke down a little bit. Okay, so I think I have it set. I'm going to take it for a little ride now and see what it does. So I'm going to put the air cleaner on it and we'll go for a little ride. Okay. Let's go for a little ride. Beautiful car. Seems to be running pretty good. a lot better than it did before with that accelerator pump not working. I had a hard time starting the car, and yeah, I was idling a little rough and stuff. So beautiful day. Still seems like it's idling a little bit rough. I think I might have a vacuum leak, possibly, or maybe some bad plugs. I'll pull the plugs out and check those. I haven't done that yet. idle about 700 RPM in gear. It's up to about 1,000. I'm gonna have to lower that down a little bit. That's kind of high yet. I'd like to have it down around 800 in neutral and around 600-700 in drive. So anyway, looks like that was successful. QuadraJets are kind of funny. They're kind of finicky. I mean, I've rebuilt them before and they work great. Like this one seems to be running pretty good. I've had other ones where you fight it and it never does run right. And so it's hit or miss on those. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something from it. Every time I do something on a car, I learn something. So even though I've done several QuadraJets, it's always a new experience. When you open one up, you never know what you're going to find. It's like a box of chocolates. Anyway, have a great day. I'm definitely enjoying the day. It's a beautiful day here in Florida. I might fire up the Vette and go for another ride here after lunch. It's time to eat right now, so I'm going to wrap up this video. And like I say, if you like our videos, hit the like and subscribe. Please leave comments down below. If you have any questions about anything or anything you'd like to see me cover on any topic from machining to welding to woodworking to mechanics, I had a little bit of experience in a lot of different areas, so just leaving a comment down below, and hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.